Hello, welcome to the Gables, Lace and Tails podcast. My name is Sue and I am a maker from northwestern Wisconsin. Hello, how's it going? Do you see something different? I decided to invest in myself, and sometimes investing in myself is really hard to do, and yet this feels really good at the same time as a little odd because I did have a fine microphone. It wasn't so bad. You couldn't always hear what I was saying if I was talking really quiet. So I'm hoping that this microphone works a lot better. I have seen a lot of podcasters use this brand, and then I almost bought it at Black Friday time period or Cyber Monday, whatever. There was a really good deal going on and I was so close to buying it, but I was so worried that it wouldn't work with my phone, and I just was being very cautious. I did get an okay price for it. It wasn't the best and it wasn't the worst. I did, before I bought it, talk to our school's tech guy, and I asked him a bunch of information and he explained it really well to me. I was so thankful. And then I saw him today and I told him I bought the microphone, and he was like, cool. And I was like, yes, I'm so excited. He goes, does it work nice? And I said, it sure does, because I tested it out last night because I was going to use it in my previous podcast. However, I didn't charge it correctly. I didn't take off any of the security little blue strips on the charging areas for the microphone. You know, live and learn. So yes, I'm investing in myself. I had planned when I started this podcast to always use the best sound. I did enough research beforehand, and yet, you know, with a limited budget, I went with a wired mic. However, I was always so worried that it was going to fall out of my phone during the podcast, and sometimes it did. So I'm glad I have this, and I hope to do a much better job with my podcasts in the future, because we're all living and learning, and you never know what may happen down the road. But I've been doing this for a year, and so far so good. So the first thing I'm going to discuss are 3 whips that I'm working on, and then I'm going to go into some gauge swatches and you know, a little discussion throughout the whole thing. Now, the first one I'm going to discuss is called the Finley. I got it out of this book, Only Yoking by Olga Putano. I really like this book. I've made another sweater out of this book called the Audrey, or I label it as my Christmas sweater. And so, let's see. I'm going to find a better picture of this. Here we go. So you have an idea what the color work part of the yoke will look like. There we go. It's very beautiful. I liked the aspect of having a blue sweater, and I have a lot of upcycle alpaca in the sport weight, and I was able to get gauge for the fingering weight sweater with the sport weight yarn using wood needles, which is going to come into play later on when I talk about my gauge swatches. So I'm using the color Sapphire, which is this deep, beautiful blue, and the color Sea Glass, which is this nice pale gray. Presently, the last time I looked, which has been a couple months, let's be honest, they don't have the sport weight, they have the worsted weight. It is a mixture of alpaca, wool, and acrylic, and it has a good drape. I have made other garments out of this, and I'm glad to say that it's not really that itchy if I'm not too hot. The fact that it has acrylic sometimes makes me way too hot. For example, little segue before I go further. I made this out of Lion Brand's worsted weight Wool Ease, which has 80% acrylic and 20% wool. I love this sweater. It's generally really nice. However, if I start to get warm, it doesn't breathe at all. That's the acrylic. So this has less acrylic, only like 30, we'll just say 30%. It's about a third of each fiber content. So I'm hoping that this will be better. And this is held upside down. And this is the front of the yoke. I suppose I could just do this. Ooh, we'll hold it up right side up. Okay. Oh, it's so pretty. It makes me so happy. I really enjoy working on this, but I have to be sharp-minded. I can't be tired. I can't do it in the dark. I have to have enough light, and I'm using my Knitter's Pride wood needles. I can't remember the name of them, but they're not the ginger set. It's the next tier down on the cost. They're interchangeable. I just recently swapped out the cords from the 24-inch to the 32-inch. So everything was really like bunched up, and now it's a little further. I have employed, especially with this pattern, because it changes really frequently. You know, you don't really follow like a flower or whatever. You have all these leaves. Anyway, I employ a leapfrog method where I know that the stitches are correct here, and then I put a pin, and then I do these, and these are correct. I just realized something. I found a stitch marker. I don't know where I put it. I found a stitch marker, I think it's over there, on the floor, and it was from here. So I'll have to put that on before I go so I know the beginning of the round. Anyway, it's a really lovely pattern. Once I get the color work done, then I'll be stocking it in the round, and that will tire my hands out, so I will just have to work on it, you know, periodically, set it aside. I don't know how long it'll take. I'm hoping to get this done quicker than, or sooner than later. Yeah, sooner than later, because it's so beautiful and it is just gorgeous. So that is the Finley. I'm using a size US 5 needle for this, and I got gauge. So this wood needle makes my stitches tighter, I believe, than the metal, and that will come into play when I talk about the gauge swatches. I don't want to create too much of a mess with my yarn. When I'm knitting, I always hold the main color below and the color change above. And since it's only a 2-color pattern, I always know it's like this. If it was a 3-color, then I would denote in my notes which one's on top, middle, or below. Also, I knit English style, so I don't hold the 2 yarns in 2 separate hands. It is drop one, pick one up, drop the other, pick one up. I have enjoyed doing it that way because then I don't get huge knots in my yarn. And I mean, I have, but now that I understand the method, like when I'm doing like yarn overs, not yarn overs, catching my floats, I just make sure I unravel my project before moving on, so I don't get a huge knot and spend like 20 minutes undoing the knot that I created. You see? Voila, I just did that. Okay, so I'm going to do this, keep it there. And, you know, being organized is more than just having like notes. It's knowing how to put stuff in a bag for later, so it doesn't get too twisted, so it doesn't get broken needles and all that fun stuff. So the cats are quiet now. All is quiet on my fronts. All right, the next thing I'm going to talk about is the palette cardigan. Over break, I finished another panel. I first did the back panel. Just hold it here. I did a 2x2 ribbing. Looks very sharp. I have like this green lifeline through here to show where the armhole starts. And I am using I was going to say two different things. First, I'm using my Ann Budd's Handy Book of Sweater Patterns. I'm making a set-in sleeve V-neck cardigan. My other palette cardigan that was made out of the Briar Twist, which is a darker yarn, a darker brown. I love wearing that. It is just so perfect. It keeps me just cozy. So here is the armhole on this cardigan. And then on this side, this is the left front, is the V-neck part. I am using a size 42-inch bust for the stitch count, and I'm doing a size 40-inch bust for the length. I really like the Ann Budd's patterns because it's a spreadsheet. I've shown it many times, but I'll show it again. I'm just going to open up to a page that has it. So you have the spreadsheet, you find your gauge over here, and they have stitches per inch versus 4 inches. And then you find the size, and then you just follow that throughout all the instructions. Love using this. I made this sweater using this book. This is the drop shoulder version. I have made a lot of sweaters from that book. So I then finished my left front, and then I cast on my right front, and I'm not very far, but this is going to be like I'm tired or I'm working at something. Like I did bring this to a ticket booth game, and so I can just go back and forth for a while until I get to the armhole shaping. And there's a 2x2 rib. They're crazy. I'm using my Knit Picks, gosh, what is it called? Reflections needle in the size, I think it's 2.5. I'm wrong. I think it's 3. Let's double check. Check, double check. Yep, a US 3. It's fingering weight 2-ply yarn. I got it from Knit Picks. I don't know if they have this color anymore. This was one of the first yarns I bought from Knit Picks. And because I was really kind of, nervous about buying yarn online, and someone from my yarn group way back when told me about them. And so I thought, well, I'll buy whatever's on clearance if I like it. I got this for $1.62 a skein. Talk about those were the days. So I'm really happy to be using it. I'm going to be working on this periodically. Since it is fingering weight, it does take time, but before you know it, you've passed the mark of your shoulder, and then you have to do this 2 sleeves. So there's a lot to do. I am using this crochet thread that I got at a thrift store as my lifelines, because using a white thread wasn't showing up, and this green one does remarkably well. So other than that, this is just going to take some time. I may work on it periodically and not show it until I finish a panel or finish blocking some stuff, because why bother? Why bother? Now, during Christmas, I brought with me, we were gone for Christmas Eve into Christmas Day, and I brought with me only 2 projects, my Sailor Swift top that I showed in my previous podcast, and I brought some socks I'm starting on because I am using another Ann Buds book. I'm using this one, the Handbook of Patterns. And there's the sock pattern right there. I have only made 2 different sock patterns in my entire life. The first one came from, I believe, Laura Ashley, and I don't like them. It just does not fit my foot well. I just don't like the heel flap and gusset on those socks. I still wear them. I just don't like the fit. So I found this book and I thought, well, I'll just make one. And then I loved it. I love the way it fits. In fact, I'm wearing a pair right now. I'll just take them off real quick. And I usually knit about 7 inches. You can see that I do about this far with the size US 3 because I like having a bit of width on my legs, calves, and I always turn them down like this too for whatever reason. I don't know why, I just do. And I love the heel flap. So you do it's a pretty standard heel flap, and then you do the turn heel. For mine, I always put an extra strand of sock yarn here. Sometimes I get a matching color, sometimes I don't. And then I always pick up more gusset stitches than the pattern requires because I have quite a bit of width on my foot right in this area, where if I tie my shoes too tight, I cut off the circulation. And it is a family thing. I have an aunt who has something similar with her own foot shape. Whoa. They almost took down the glider. I have a gliding rocking chair for my grandma, and the cats love to sit on top of it, and they have taken it right over in the past. So I believe I brought this one with. I make my socks. Oh, I got a friend coming. Guess which one? Give you 2 guesses. Oh, it's the calico who loves the yarn. She does. She loves the yarn. Okay, so I always cast on 2 socks at the same time. It just makes it easier for me to keep track. So I will get each sock to a certain length, whatever it is. I think it's like 4 inches. I could be wrong. Maybe 3.5 inches to a certain length, and then I switch. No, thank you. Switch the needles down to a US 2. Right now I'm using a US 3. These are my Knitter's Pride's Zings. They have a blunt tip. I really like them. I've used these sock needles for almost every pair of socks I've made. Yeah, almost every pair. I had wood ones by Knitter's Pride. They were fine, but I always feel like I'm going to break them. And I had just 1 set of the Zings, and I was hooked. I was like, these are great. I love them. So each sock I get to a certain spot. So when I was at visiting for Christmas, I just worked on this. It's relatively simple. I mean, you're just working on 1 needle here, and then the next one, and then the next one. And if you have to put it down, you can put it down super easy. That's why I brought super easy projects to do. Then, after I get down, I have to get another pair of socks finished in order for me to complete this pair. So this is another thing I can bring to like waiting for my daughter when she's in one of her activities. I can just sit there and knit around and around and around and not really have to think about it because I make my socks the exact same all the time. Sounds boring, but it's reliable, it's predictable, and I know what to do. So I always do a 3x1 rib pattern, which is what I enjoy. I have finished, I'm making a pair of black socks. I finished one this past, when did I finish it? We had not a snow day. We had a remote learning day due to bad weather this week, and I did work via, I did some online classes myself. So I did work, and then after my time was done, I came out and I thought, you know what? I was going to sew up one of my cardigans, but it was just too dark to do that fine work of trying to find the stitches without turning all the lights on in the house. And I wasn't really in the mood to sew up a cardigan at that time, because once I start, I don't want to stop. But I can start and stop on a sock. So this is a pair, this is one of the pair done. You can barely see, but it's the 3x1 rib. I did, you can kind of see here, I did about this much using the US 3 and the rest is a US 2. You can see my extra yarn here in the heel. The other one's purple. I've just used up bits of sock yarn. And the reason why I do put the extra yarn here, one, it reinforces the heel, and I'm really hard on my heels. Two, it doesn't add bulk to the overall sock, and I can wear it in my shoes as well as in my boots. I couldn't finish the second sock without finishing the first sock because I only bought 3 skeins of black sock yarn. It's Patons. It's just a Patons sock yarn. Presently it's my favorite. It's a workhorse yarn. I don't have any problems with putting it in the washer. I don't dry them. I just hang them up to dry. But I just stick them in the washer, and I even wash them on hot, and everything seems to be fine. They do get a little felted over time, but it is super wash, so not too much. And then here's the second one. I got the purple heel, and I measured this morning. You have to measure from the back of the heel up, and I am about an inch before I start doing the foot decreases. Oh, like, what is that crunching? My cat's eating. So, real excited. I was working on these this morning before work. It's really nice because you're like, okay, I only have a few minutes left before I have to get ready. Let's see how far I can go. I got 3 more needles. One round completed. So, okay. Put that there. All right. The last thing I'm going to discuss is some new possible cast-ons. But don't you have a lot of cast-ons already? Don't you have a lot of projects in the works? Why, yes, I do. I do have a lot of cast-ons in various states of completion. When I was over break, we had 2 weeks off for Christmas, a full 2 weeks, and I wasn't always able to knit on every single day. I was making cookies for the first part of it. I was doing a lot of spring cleaning. I was doing a lot of ticket booths. I worked 4 different ticket booths on the Monday and Tuesday of each week, and I just worked on as many things as I could. And as the second week, progressed over, New Year's, I thought, I really, really want to make these sweaters, or I really, really want to make these tops. And Who says I can't cast on? And why is it a big deal? And I'm not a monogamous knitter by no means. I have to be in the right mood to knit on the right thing. And I like having a variety of things to knit on, so I never get really bored. So with that stated, I am trying to get gauge for Veronica Lindbergh's or Kukakavika's stripe hype sweater. I have bought this pattern probably a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. And then I'm also trying to get gauge for the Frere sweater by Inga from Knitting Traditions. I'm just going to hold it. You can see that there's like a little bit of a cable hemline, and it's a raglan, and it's really nice. And I love her podcast. I love both ladies' podcasts. I have learned so much from both of them. And when these patterns came up, I was like, oh, heck yeah. So with the Frere sweater, we'll start with that. You need a 21 stitch gauge. And as Inga has stated in many of her podcasts, you can use essentially any needle, any yarn type, any yarn weight, as long as you get the 21 stitches per gauge. And that would make the sweater. So I thought, well, I could get probably that stitch gauge, because it's a DK weight. Now, Knit Picks has Wool of the Andes. It is a light worsted, so it's a thick DK. And I can use a US 7 and get 18 stitches per inch. This is the color Opal Heather, maybe. I got it for $2 a skein on their most recent big November sale. And when I saw that, I thought, I want to make the Frere sweater out of this. Now, I've already made 2 gauge swatches. Neither of them are correct for the pattern. The first one I did, I used a US 7, and I thought, oh, we'll see. You know, also a little thing I started doing, which makes a lot of sense for me, is at the end of the yarn for the swatch, because I always forget the needle that I used, I did 3 or 7 knots. So now I know it's a US 7. Now I used the Knit Picks Reflections, which is the stainless steel needle. And I got 18 stitches per 4 inches. You can see through it. It's very loose, okay? It's, in my opinion, for this sweater, too loose. So I went down a needle size for a US 6. This one is way too wide. And I got 18.5 stitches per 4 inches. So not much difference. I'm going to go and do one more gauge swatch using a wood needle, and I think I'm going to go down to a 5. I'm tempted to go down to a 4 because, you know, if I got 18 for the 7s and 18.5 for the 6s, would I only get like maybe 19 with the 5? So I'm gonna play around with this. I did buy 15 skeins of this, so if I do run short, which I shouldn't, I can always take apart the gauge swatches, and I may take these apart anyway as time goes on. I did block them, and all I did was soak them for about a half hour, and then you know, blotted them dry. And then I did pin them out, but I didn't stretch anything. I just laid them down, and I just tacked the T-pins so it just wouldn't curl up because it's stockinette on all sides. So I think I do knit tighter with wood. So I'm going to try. That's why I also only want to try the 5s. I keep going back and forth. 4 or 5. If I try the 5s and I get closer, then I know I can just go down to a 4 and do that next size or whatever. So yes, but this is so pretty. It's in some lights, like when I'm looking at it here, it's more what's the word? Not pumpernickel, not coneflower, not periwinkle. Periwinkle. It looks very periwinkle in the dark, and then it looks a lot different, more iridescent, and you can see the blues and the grays and the purples. It's very beautiful. It is 100% wool. I love it. I love sweaters made out of that. So my next sweater that I want to do, and I made a gauge swatch for, is the stripe pipe. However, I think I really like seeing blocks of color on other people. When I see like the stripe pipe sweater on others, I think, ooh, that's really striking. I love how they, did all their blocks of color. And then I keep going back and forth. So this is my gauge swatch. These 2 rows here are the correct amount of stitches or rows for the stripes. And then I kind of was getting bored. Gauge swatching is so hard for me. One, the time that it takes to find the right gauge sometimes is quick, sometimes is painstakingly long. I feel like I am wasting my precious knitting time or crafting time or crochet time making gauges, even though I know it's the best thing so you get the properly fitted garment. But it just, it's a double-edged sword. So this gray color is called Dove Heather. This purpley color is called Mineral Heather. They have those 2 colors still on their website. And then this color here is called Barn Door. I got all mine for $2 a skein. Each skein of the Wool of the Andes worsted weight has 110 yards. Okay. Originally when I bought this, because I have had this yarn now for over a year. Originally I was going to make the stripe pipe sweater out of these 2 colors because when I was looking on them online, it looked like there was enough contrast. But when I had them close together, I wanted a much more starker contrast. So, and then I thought, well, I could have blocks of color where this would be the top tier, this would be the middle tier, and then this would be the bottom tier. And then I thought, I don't know if I'll wear that. Like, I want these sweaters to be timeless. Like 20 years from now, when I'm in my 70s, I want to pull out my striped sweater that I made and go, yeah, this is a classic. I really like the drop shoulder construction. I mean, this is a very popular sweater. Everybody has seen it who knits a lot, or if you just put in your Google search stripe pipe sweater and look at all the images, and there's so many different options. Veronica herself has made a 2-color stripe pipe sweater. So I decided I'm going to make one like this because I bought 20 skeins of this at this present $2 for $6 sale this past November. So I could make one sweater like this because that's pretty striking. These 2 colors, before the red came along, I was like, oh, I'm hooked. I love this. This is so cool. I love it so much. And then the next one will be these 2. And when I made that color combination, let's see if I can just hold it. I was like, ooh, even better. However, I'm going to have to use a wood needle for this one as well, because using the recommended needle size, which was a size a US 6, I'm supposed to get 20 stitches per inch, and I got 18 stitches per inch using a metal needle with the tweed. I mean, it's lovely fabric. It's very drapey, but it's very also, you probably can't tell, but it's pretty see-through. I can see a lot of light through this. So back to the drawing board. I will probably make my next gauge swatch using the red and the dove, the barnyard and the barn door and the dove heather, because I only have 10 of each of these, which is only, if 10 times 110 is 1,100 yards, and I have 1,100 of this, so I should have more than enough for a sweater, but it just really makes me nervous. Like, will I have enough for the sweater? I keep going back and forth. I'm gonna be just fine. That's what I'm going to tell myself. I'm just fine. I mean, if I make the next gauge swatch only using this, they have both of these colors on their website. It wouldn't be the same dye lot, but with a striped sweater, it's not as like critical because you are switching back and forth. At least that's my idea. So I hope that everyone is doing well. It's been, how can I put this? It's been a chaotic time in the world, and locally as well as nationally as well as internationally. And I just hope that everyone cools their jets, as they used to say in my youth. Just cool your jets, because it's been stressful. So, school has been good. Work has been fine. It's always hard to go back after a long break because you're enjoying your time at home or whatever. And but the first day we went back, and I was out at recess, and just listening to the little old people who are kindergartners have like their conversations, and just makes you smile and think there's hope for humanity yet, right? And knock on wood. So on that cheery note, don't let anybody tell you you can't make more than 5 whips. And if you're a monogamous knitter, congratulations. But I am not. And I need the variety of projects. I did feel really bad that I wasn't able to work on my Patons cable sweater during break, because I had planned to work on as many projects as I could. And I showed the other ones that I worked on in my previous video. And I did get quite a bit done, given my time and availability to do stuff. So I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope to create better podcasts as time goes on. I would love to be able to go insert a picture right here type thing. And also, if you ever wonder why I have these pillows right here, they're to block my cats from going on the shelf. Because when they're down, they try to get on the shelf all the time, and I have things up there I do not want them to touch. So, once again, thank you so much for spending your time with me. I hope you're all doing well. Take care. Have fun. Bye for now.